Hey there, everyone. So excited that you are here today for today's Facebook Live. I'm going to give it just a second for folks to join in, and we will go ahead and get started. If you're watching the replay, you can probably fast forward for just a second or two until we get into today's conversation. So thanks so much for taking time to watch today. Thanks so much for being here. For those of you who I haven't had the chance to meet before, thank you for spending some time with me. My name is Tyler J. McCall, and I help entrepreneurs grow their business by marketing on Instagram. And today I'm here to talk with you about one of my students and her success with using Instagram to grow her business. So I'm super excited to share more about this with you, and I'm going to walk you through what I call the BFFL system and how this all works. So today we're going to talk about one of my students, how she's used Instagram and just Instagram to make over $2.3 million in sales in the past year in her real estate business, and how she's using just Instagram to do that. No ads, no mailers, no cold calling, nothing like that, just Instagram. And I really wanted to talk about this because I hear from so many people that you cannot make money on Instagram. It's impossible to sell on Instagram. It never works with building your business on Instagram. I hear that so often. Let me know in the comments if you hear that, or let me know if you've said that yourself, because I hear that a lot. And it is just so wrong. It's so far from the truth because people are doing it every single day. I know I've done it. Pretty much my entire business, my multiple six-figure business, has been built with the help of Instagram. And my student, she has a real estate business. She's a realtor, and she grew that business to over $2.3 million in sales in 1 year with Instagram as the only tool she was using to market herself. So it is just not true. You can make money using Instagram if you're using it thoughtfully and intentionally and with a strategy behind it. So now today I am talking to you about one of my students who is a realtor, and I'm talking to you about her experience, but I want you to know that what I'm sharing is applicable regardless of your industry, your line of work. If you sell a product, if you sell a service, it applies to you, as all of my Instagram strategies typically do. They are pretty applicable to pretty much any industry, any product, any service. So the same goes for you. Don't hear that I'm sharing the story of a realtor and think, oh, this doesn't work for me, it's not going to work for me, when it actually will. Okay? So I'm super excited to dive in and walk you through what worked for her, how she used this system to see crazy results. But first things first, for those of you watching live, I'd love to hear from you. Pop into the comments and let me know where you're watching from so I can say hello to you, and let me know where you're watching from. Okay, also one last thing. I have a brand new free resource out that I would love for you to get your hands on. Excuse me. It is the Instagram Roadmap. It's a PDF guide that walks you through how to get started with marketing on Instagram. I walk you through all the steps to get started on Instagram, and then also share with you the 3 big mistakes you need to avoid so you can ensure that Instagram works for you. You can head on over to tylerjmccall.com/roadmap and get your copy of the Instagram Roadmap. I'd love for you to download that and learn more about how you can use Instagram for marketing your business. Perfect. So Elizabeth is here from Idaho. Tina's here from Asheville. Hey, Tina. So happy to see you. We have other folks watching as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dive into today's video. So today we're going to talk about what it takes to sell on Instagram. There's just 2 things that you need to make it work. I'm going to share those with you. I'm going to talk about how my student made sure Instagram worked for her in her business by setting herself apart and focusing on being herself and not trying to be anyone else. This is a huge one. This is what really helped make her successful with what she's doing. So I can't wait to share that with you. I'm going to talk with you about what the BFFL system, or I like to just abbreviate it as BIFFL, what the BIFFL system is and how you can use it to sell more on Instagram without being slimy or sleazy or salesy. And then I'm going to talk with you about why the algorithm isn't the problem. It never has been, and it never will be. And listen, you've probably heard me talk about this topic before because I talk a lot about the algorithm, because a lot of people blame what's happening on Instagram on the algorithm. They say, I don't get enough followers, I don't get enough sales, I'm not getting in front of people, and they blame it on the algorithm. And listen, the algorithm's different than it was a year ago. It has changed. It's changed some of the things we do on Instagram, but at the end of the day, it does not change the strategy that we use for marketing our businesses on Instagram. So I'm going to share with you why the whole algorithm thing is not an excuse you should be using when it comes to Instagram success. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm super excited about this topic. So the first thing I want to talk about is what it takes to sell on Instagram. And there's some really common misconceptions about how to make it work. A lot of people think you have to have pretty pictures, or you have to have a pretty feed. You have to have this perfect layout with your grid put together in a perfect way. You need to have 10,000 followers on Instagram before you can sell, because you can't sell without the swipe up, and you can't get the swipe up unless you have 10,000 followers. People think to sell on Instagram, you also need a Facebook group or an email list or Facebook ads or all these other things. And I'm here to tell you that none of that is true. Listen, all of those are nice to haves. Pretty pictures on Instagram, they're nice to have. Having 10,000 followers, it's a nice to have. Having an email list or a Facebook group, all of those are great, nice things to have. And they're things that you can work to in your business. Those are goals that you can have. Those are things that you think about creating or introducing or outsourcing or hiring or introducing to your marketing strategy in the future. But to get started on Instagram, to sell on Instagram, you just need two things. And that's what makes it work. So the two things that you need to sell on Instagram are an audience and an offer. Okay? So those are the two main things that you need to sell on Instagram. If you're a member of the Follower to Fan Society, which is my online community where I walk people all through Instagram marketing and marketing strategy online. You heard me talk about this yesterday. I've been talking in there about these two things. Oh, hey there, Tiffany. I'm glad you're here. Coach Glitter's in the house. Hey to everyone else in the comments. So glad you're here. Thanks for popping in and watching with me this afternoon. So the two things you need to sell on Instagram are an audience and an offer. It's that simple, but I want to tell you why. So the first thing is, when it comes to an audience, you need that clarity around who the heck you're talking to. You need to understand who you want to attract, who you do not want to attract in your business. You need to get really clear on what they're looking for from you, how you can best serve them, what they're thinking when they're looking for your product or service, what they're thinking about when it comes time to make a decision to buy a product or service like yours. You need to get really clear on their values, what's important to them. You need to know as much as possible about them, okay? And the best way to learn all of those things, you also need to know how to communicate with them. So many valuable things you need to know. And here's the thing that you need to do to make that happen. The easiest way, the best way to learn all about... Sorry, y'all. If you can hear me, let me know in the chat box, because it looks like someone's having some trouble. It looks like things are still working on my end. The easiest way to get really clear on who you're trying to reach is to stop and listen. Yeah, it's to stop and listen. And I hear from so many people that they're trying to figure out who to talk to, what to say, how to say it, and they're getting so lost. And if you just stop and listen, if you just stop and pay attention, if you stop and lurk a little bit, then you'll get more clarity around who these people are, who you're trying to reach. Okay, perfect. Thanks, everyone. Glad you can hear me. So that's the first thing you need. You need that audience. You need to get really clear on who they are, where they are, what they want from you, how you can best serve them. All right, that's the first thing. And then the other thing you need to have clarity around is your offer. So what are you actually selling to people? And a lot of times, I hear from people from across the spectrum who are selling products or services, and there's not a lot of clarity around what they're actually selling. And so something we talk about in Follower to Fan Society, something that I've been learning a lot about this recently myself too, through my coach, is how do I get really clear on my offer? And when we think about our offer is more than just the product or service, right? The offer is the entire experience of purchasing from you. The offer is made up of the thing that you actually sell, but then how it's delivered to someone, how it's positioned for them, how it's presented to them, what the customer service is like, or what the experience is like when that thing is being delivered to them, the words that you use to describe it, the way that you speak to their values or their fears or their hopes or their dreams. All of those things encompass the offer. So to sell on Instagram, you just need those two things. You need an audience and you need an offer. Those are the two things that you need to make it all work for you. And I want to talk you through how that works within this BFFL system. Okay. So what made this work really well for my student is she had complete clarity on her audience. So she knew going into using Instagram to market herself as a realtor, that she wanted to speak to millennial first-time home buyers. That's who she wanted to talk to because she knew they were on Instagram. She knew that's where the market was. She knew that she could confidently speak to those people because she herself had been a millennial first-time home buyer. And she knew through the process of buying a home that it wasn't as stressful or convoluted as it had been made to seem by other people, by other realtors. So she knew she wanted to target millennial first-time home buyers. And her offer, her core thing she was offering them was her help in navigating the home buying process to make it easy and simple while taking into account her clients' finances, their student loans, getting pre-qualified, getting a mortgage, all of that stuff. That's what she knew she wanted to do. So she had an audience and she had an offer. She had millennial first-time home buyers, and she had the offer of helping them through the process of buying a home for the first time while taking into account student loans, debt, financial concerns, all those things that millennials may be thinking. All my millennials in the house, you can raise your hand and say, yeah, if that's true for you. My partner Eric and I do not own our home. We rent, and we would love to own a home one day, but it's stressful to think about, buying a home, especially when you're an entrepreneur, y'all. That's a whole nother level of complication because you just have to do so many things to prove that you can, actually pay the mortgage. So that's who she wanted to target. But here is what really helped my student take this to the next level, because that's a market that you can serve and you can do it well on Instagram, and that's kind of a specific offer that you can have for them, right? There are other realtors out there doing this. Here's the thing. There are other realtors in other markets doing the same thing. There are other people out there selling the same product as you. There are other people delivering the same service as you. There are other people who teach the same thing you do, or who sell a similar product, or who make things by hand, or who are wedding photographers, or who are business coaches. There are people who do the same thing or do something similar to you. But here is the thing that my student did that made this work really well for her, is she was herself through this whole process. So she knew that if she wanted to stand out on Instagram, that she needed to show up as herself truly, honestly, and genuinely. And she was able to set herself apart by doing that. And here's what happened really well, and this is why she's been so successful, is she has been able to set herself up as the go-to on Instagram for real estate in her market. Okay. So that's what worked so well for her. She set herself up as the go-to for real estate in her market. So she was able to, and this is something else, she and I, and the reason that spurred this whole live is she and I actually just had a conversation last week, and we were catching up, and I was giving her some coaching on kind of the next direction for her on Instagram. And we had this long conversation about what was the thing that people were continually, because this is really important, y'all. If you're not continually polling or surveying or talking to your customers and clients about how they're ending up on your in your program, how they're ending up buying your product, how they end up booking your service, and if you're not asking them how they found you and why they went with you over someone else, you're missing out on super, super valuable data in your business. So the conversation I had is, okay, we need to sit down with some of our dream clients that we've had over the past year and figure out why the heck they chose you over. There are plenty of realtors out there. Why did they choose her? And it all came back to her personality and who she was and how she made the process simple. How any of the pain or stress or frustration that went into home buying, she took that on herself and the client never knew about it, right? So that is something that she was doing that as a person, as a human being, a real life human being, not a robot, not an Instagram celebrity, not someone with a cute, happy little life, and just she's not filling her feed with it's not every other picture is a marble tabletop with a succulent on it, right? There's real life happening here. There's a real person behind this account. So she made sure that she showed up on Instagram with that reality, that authenticity, that genuineness. And that's a huge part of how she set herself apart, and a huge part of what made this work so well for her. She was able to recognize who she was, what she was offering, who she was offering it to, and then she could show up fully as herself. And that's what really, really changed things for her. Okay? So she did all this using the BFFL system. So this is something I just came up with. This is not the official system that I teach inside the Follower to Fan Society, which if you're watching and you don't know, the Follower to Fan Society is an online membership community that I'm so grateful to host and to lead that community. And I help entrepreneurs market themselves on the internet, starting with Instagram. We talk all about getting clear on who you're trying to market to, how to create your own Instagram strategy, how to sell on Instagram, how to get people off of Instagram onto your sales sales page or onto your mailing list or onto your shop if you have an online shop, or even into your doors if you have a brick and mortar. We talk about a lot of different Instagram marketing strategies, but I want to talk you through this idea of this BFFL system, the BFFL system that really made this work. Now, this is something you need to know about the student of mine who she's watching. She and I worked together years ago. Like she actually just joined Follower to Fan Society recently, but she and I worked together years ago. And the system that we shared with her then, and that she's still using today, this is kind of like an adaptation of that. But here's the thing you need to know is this works when you don't think, like, without an algorithm, right? No algorithm is going to change this. No change that Instagram makes is going to make this ineffective. And I think a lot of times there are two things. What you are hearing about Instagram from other folks who teach Instagram, sometimes it can get a little bit too algorithm focused, right? It's all about I actually did an interview recently. Someone said, how can we beat the algorithm? How can we hack the Instagram algorithm? And I just told them, you can't. There's no way to. And also, we don't need to, because the algorithm is actually really valuable for us as entrepreneurs and as content creators. It makes our content last longer and makes sure that only the right people are seeing our content. It allows us to create less content. And when we do create content, it's higher quality. There are a lot of really great benefits of the algorithm. We're not going to beat the algorithm. Instead, we need to learn how to use marketing strategies on Instagram that are effective, that get our point across, and that allow us to connect with the right people. And that's what this BFFL system allows us to do. So the whole focus of the BFFL system is on relational marketing. It's remembering that there are real people behind these screens. So they're not robots and they're not dollar signs. They are real life human beings with hopes, dreams, wishes, fears, desires, and needs that you can provide for them. They have problems that you can solve. They have issues that you can help take care of. They have desires that you can fill. They have hopes that you can help them meet. They have dreams that you can help them achieve through the product or service that you offer. So when we use, so someone said, what does BFFL stand for? Oh, it stands for Best Friend for Life. For those of you who don't know. Sorry, that's like text speak. So BFFL, Best Friend for Life. So I just co-opted it and said, you know what, I'm taking this and saying this is the BFFL system. So the BFFL system is all about relational marketing. And what I want you to think about doing, and this is going to be a huge mindset shift for so many of you. So I want you to kind of get into this right headspace, right? Get your crystal out if you need to. I always got a crystal or 15 laying around my desk. This is going to be a mindset shift, but I want you to think about whenever you are on Instagram, right? A lot of people, I want to hear from you actually. Let me know in the comments if a lot of times on Instagram you feel like the energy that you're putting out on Instagram, let me get a little woo-woo for a second, is a pushing energy. You feel like you're pushing your product or service out there. You're pushing an idea out into Instagram. You're pushing a concept onto your followers. I see a lot of people do this, and a way that this comes through for a lot of people is they'll post something and then just close out of Instagram, right? Or they'll just post with a bunch of hashtags and they'll just run off of Instagram. And it's all about pushing, right? All the content creations. How much content can I push out? How often can I push my content out? How frequently can I push this offer out to my audience, right? Instead, I want you to shift your focus from pushing to pulling. Instead of pushing, you're going to pull, okay? So this is how this looks different. Instead of pushing your product or service out there, pushing your offer out there, pushing a sales page out there, pushing content out there, you are pulling your followers closer to your business, and you're inviting them to learn more about you, what you do, and why you do it. And when you adjust your mindset and you recognize that, you know what, instead of pushing my content out, I'm going to focus on pulling people closer to me, that allows you to create content that's more interesting for your followers, because it's not just overtly salesy. It's more valuable for your followers because you're personally invested in the relationship that you're building with them. So it's not just, posting and running off of Instagram. It's more fun to create because there's this genuine intention that goes behind it. You can create it more honestly because you're not just trying to create content and push it out there from a kind of a place of trying to get a sale or the scarcity mindset, right? So instead, we want to pull. We want to pull people closer to us. We want to tell our story, so we pull them a little bit closer. We want to educate them, so we pull them a little bit closer to us, so they see the value in following us and being a part of our communities online. We want to inspire them, so we pull them a little bit closer in and they feel like they can do this too, that their house can look like that with your handmade product, or that their relationship can be that happy with your relationship coaching, or that their wedding day can be as gorgeous with your wedding planning services, right? So we want to pull them closer to these ideas and these values that we have. And then we want to pull them in and build a real relationship with them. So that's where direct messages come in. That's where Instagram stories come in. That's where using posts that have calls to action that invite our audience to comment come in. That's where all this comes into play. That's when I say pull, that's what I'm talking about. Creating this content that is valuable, that's educational, that's inspirational, that's storytelling, that is inviting them to have a conversation with you. So that is the first part of this, the BFFL system. But here's where it really comes into play. When you shift the focus from pushing to pulling, where instead of trying to push content out, you're pulling people in, you can use this system to do one thing. One thing. You want to speak to one person about one topic with one type of content with one end goal in mind. And that's it. So you're speaking to one person about one topic with one type of content with one end goal in mind. And that focus on that one thing is what drives success on Instagram. That's what the most successful Instagrammers are seeing drive success for them, is that focus on one person with one type of content around one specific topic with one end goal in mind. So for example, for me, I talk to creative entrepreneurs about how they can market their business online by creating content that's meaningful and intentional. And my goal is to get them to become a part of my community and join the Follower to Fan Society. That's the process. That's what it looks like for me. If you don't have that one thing in your business, it's going to be really, really hard for you to make this work for you sometimes, because you're going to get very scattered on Instagram. It's going to be very hard for people to understand you, to understand your product or service, to understand your unique point of view. And it also makes it really hard to speak to one person the whole time. So that's the other part of the BFFL system. One person, one topic, one type of content with one goal in mind. So for my student, as I told you earlier, this was her speaking to millennial first-time home buyers about buying a home with content that was all about why she was the best person to walk them through the home buying process. And the goal was to get them to the place where she could hand them a set of keys to the home of their dreams. That was it. That was her goal. Millennial first-time home buyer to buying their first home. And then she filled in the gaps with her content to let them know she was the go-to for them. All right. And then this is what made it work really well for her, is she infused her content with personal stories. I worked with her. We kind of came up with this whole storytelling thing around what it meant for her the first time she bought a home. And how when you're in a house, you can't change things. But the first time she bought a home, she remembers doing demo or something like that, and putting stuff in the backyard and then being like, you know what, I don't have to clean it up right now if I don't want to, because I own this house. And how that's something that you have the joy of having as a home buyer. So that was personal storytelling. She bought her first home right out of college. She talked about that story and what that meant for her. And then she also infused educational content, so her audience knew more about that. She knew what she was talking about and what it was like to work with her, and she was able to demystify the home buying process. And then she infused lifestyle content that pulled people in even closer, because then they knew what it was like to live and work in the community where she's selling homes. Do you get this? Do you get this whole experience that she's creating under this one Instagram account? Here's the other thing. This person is selling homes, did over $2.3 million in sales in 1 year without an email list, without trying to grow a huge community, without going to networking events every single day of the week, without doing cold calls, without driving door to door, without lurking around playgrounds and neighborhoods until she heard someone say they wanted to buy or sell a home, popping out of a bush and being like, hi, I'm here. She wasn't doing any of those things, okay? She was on Instagram. She was using Instagram intentionally. And most of her efforts on Instagram went into engaging with other people and building relationships, okay? It wasn't just content creation. A lot of you are caught into this really, really dangerous cycle of just obsessively creating content and putting it out there and it not doing anything for you, and then you blame the platform instead of recognizing that it's your responsibility as the business owner, as the brand representative, as the marketer, as the content creator, to get out in front of your audience with your content. Okay, the job here isn't just to create content and push it out and hope people see it. I've heard from my students recently that that's a lot of what they've learned from other folks who are teaching social media marketing is, just create the content, push it out there, people will come. It's not true. It's not how it works. It's not how it works anymore. Instead, your job as the business owner, as the marketer, as the content creator is to create the content, the great high quality content for the right people about the right topic that has the right end goal in mind, and then to get out there proactively and draw people to your content, okay? And that's what she was able to do. And she was just leading people to having conversations with her via direct message. That's the other cool thing. You don't have to necessarily get people off of Instagram to sell on Instagram. You totally can. There are strategies you can use to make that happen. But she was just leading people to have a conversation via a direct message. She created content that was beneficial and valuable for her followers. She spent time getting to know them and learning more about them, how she could best serve them. And that's what made it work for her. And that's why the algorithm doesn't matter. The algorithm is not your enemy. And also the algorithm is just an excuse that a lot of people use to blame for not having success in marketing their businesses online. Because you can take ownership and responsibility of what you're doing. Okay? You can take ownership and responsibility of this process. You can take ownership and responsibility of building relationships with people. Oh, perfect. Holly, you're here. Holly's in the comments. She's the realtor. So you can ask her if you have any questions. So that's what this looks like. Okay? So using this system, this idea of getting really clear on who we're talking to, we have the audience, we have the clear offer, then we're going to focus on talking to one type of person about one thing with one type of content with one end goal in mind. And we're going to focus on the relationship and pulling them in closer instead of just trying to push a bunch of content out onto them to make it happen. And that's how you use Instagram to market your business. That's how you use Instagram to grow what you're doing. That's how you use Instagram to sell. That's how you close out a year with over $2.3 million in sales from Instagram. It's pretty incredible. Holly, thanks for letting me share your story. It's super inspiring for me, super inspiring for folks who are watching. I'd love to continue this conversation with you, but as always, we're out of time because I love to talk, y'all. Okay, I love to talk. So if you want to continue this conversation, pop into my free Facebook group, the IG Advantage. You can head on over to tylerjmccall.com/group to join us there. If you're already in the group, pop over. This video is already shared. Feel free to continue the conversation on this post. And also, the new Instagram roadmap is out, okay? New Instagram roadmap is out. It's brand new. I walk you through the first steps to getting started on Instagram, the 3 big mistakes to avoid when it comes to marketing your business on Instagram. And I introduce you to my 4-part system for turning your followers into customers. It's the system that Holly used to grow her real estate business her first year as a realtor, over $2.3 million in sales using this system on Instagram. So I'd love for you to check that out. Head on over to tylerjmccall.com/roadmap. You can download the roadmap today and start using Instagram more intentionally. And if you loved today's video, if you learned a lot, if you have something you want to share with someone else, go ahead and tag a friend in the comments below. I would love for you to share it with them so they can learn more about how to market on Instagram to grow their business. And if you have a Facebook group, Facebook page, email list, somewhere you want to share this and keep on spreading the good news about marketing on Instagram, I'd encourage you to do that as well. Thanks as always for being here. Thanks for spending your time with me. I know your time is limited and valuable as you're building your own little empire somewhere in the world. So I'm super grateful for you taking a little bit of time to spend that with me this afternoon. I'll be back with you next Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern for the last installment with Tuesdays with Tyler. I know it's so sad. This is our last. Next week is going to be our last Tuesdays with Tyler for a while. So make sure you tune back in right here on Facebook next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you soon.